Welcome to the Maria Liberati Show, where food meets art, travel, and life. So what does food mean to you? Well, join me this week as my special guest is Jane Lopes, and she is a sommelier, an Australian wine expert, and she's going to share with us some tips on enjoying Australian wine, and also some tips from her book, How to Drink Australian. So stay with me for that. And also, I just wanted to thank everyone that came out to see me at the Taste of Philly Food and Wine event this past week at the Valley Forge Convention Center. It's always nice seeing familiar faces and meeting new faces too. It was nice seeing everyone, and a special thank you to those of you that got a copy of my book, a signed copy of my book, and got to sample some of the recipes from my book also there. And a reminder that if anyone is in the area of Southampton, Pennsylvania in November or December, I will be doing a cooking class from my Gourmand World Award-winning book, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, Holidays and Special Occasions, at the Upper Southampton Library on Saturday, November 11th at 11 a.m. and also Saturday, December 2nd at 2 p.m. And I will also be at the Doylestown Library in Doylestown, Pennsylvania on Saturday, November 4th at the Author Fair. So please join me for those events. I love to add flavor to all my recipes, and now you can do it all year round with the Osea fountain from Osea Labs. Check out my 2 new recipes using black pepper extract and rosemary extract at osealabs.com. Soon it will be on the osealabs.com website. You'll get to see a video of me doing 2 recipes with some of the extracts from the Osea fountain. And it will also be on marialiberati.com and the marialiberatyshow.com. And don't forget to check out their Indiegogo campaign that is going on now for the Osea fountain from Osea Labs. Explore your essence with the Osea fountain by Osea Labs. And today I have as a special guest Jane Lopes. And she is a sommelier, author, and wine importer. And she's going to share with us some things about her latest book and also give us some suggestions for wines. You know, the holidays are coming up, so give us some suggestions for the holidays also. And Jane is joining us from Tennessee, right? Is it Nashville, Tennessee?
Yep. I live in Nashville.
Okay. I always like to mention that because I always tell people if you can't travel, we travel around. So, because usually I interview people from all parts of the world. So we're kind of traveling to Nashville today with you. Jane, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us the title of your latest book. I know we wanted to chat a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's called How to Drink Australian. So my husband and I spent 3 years living in Australia, working in restaurants and the wine industry over there. Uh-huh. So not only can we travel to Nashville today, we can travel to Australia a little bit. We just fell in love with the country and particularly the wines. Uh-huh. And we felt like there wasn't a very complete story of them being told in the United States. So in addition to coming back to the US in 2020 and starting to import Australian wine, we decided that, there should be a book on Australian wine. So we undertook that project in early 2021, and it just published last month in the US, September 12th in the US.
Oh, wow. That's great. So I guess, so you live there in Australia and you're working in the wine industry. So tell us about How to Drink Australian. So I guess it's about how to drink Australian wines or how to drink like an Australian. How to drink wine like an Australian.
Mainly about the wines. Uh-huh. But also there is a lot of kind of cultural stuff about Australia, about how people drink wine in Australia,
Right,
but also
right.
how people make it and talk about it and think
Uh-huh.
about it.
Uh-huh.
And we wanted the book to both be sort of a study reference for the professional.
Right.
So if people going into their WSET or CMS exams could use it as a resource, but also something that really just would provide sort of insight and an interesting read, even for just the enthusiast who wanted
Right.
to dig into Australian wine and culture a little bit. So yeah, the book is broken down. Each wine producing state is divided out, and then within that there are chapters for each region. And we talk about the history and sort of evolution of wine. We talk about the terroir elements, the lay of the land.
Uh-huh.
There's a part in every chapter called hubbub.
Uh-huh.
And the idea of that is really to sort of zero in on what is significant, what is really going on in each region. What are people excited about? What are they concerned about? What are the controversies? Just to give that extra bit of added insider information. And then we have producer profiles. There's over 30 original maps.
Huh?
There's beautiful photography. There's illustrations and artwork. It really is sort of a celebration of all that is Australian wine and culture.
Oh, that's great. Is there any like thing that you can kind of pick out that would be just a little sort of, is there anything different to say the Australian wine culture that's different than, I'm sure there's a lot of different things because it's a different country halfway around or maybe all around the world from us. And can you give us sort of a little snippet of some interesting sort of things that might be really different than what we might expect from the US or even from Europe?
Yeah, totally. One thing that we noticed pretty early on is how, and I don't know quite how to articulate this perfectly, but in a
Right.
sense, people are really value oriented in Australia. And it
Uh-huh.
doesn't mean all wine is cheap. And in
Uh-huh.
fact, most kind of small production wine is never going to be, you know, super inexpensive because
Right.
Australia is an expensive place to do business in terms of expensive
Yes.
land and labor costs and that sort of thing. But there's a real sentiment of Australian vintners to try to present a product that really has value. So
Uh-huh.
people aren't saying like, well, what's the most I can kind of get away with charging for this wine? People are saying, what's the least I kind of have to charge for this wine?
Uh-huh.
So I really believe that kind of in sort of um, the medium price range, let's say, what would be maybe 15 to, $45 in the US sort of for bottles in that price range. I believe
Right.
they really outbat kind of other places because people are really, creating that value is really, really important. And I think you can get some like kind of world-class wines in that price range for Australia. And I'm not sure if that's quite true of too many places in the world. So that is sort of an interesting cultural thing where people are really
Yes.
trying hard to keep their prices low and
Prices
to
low.
create a value.
Right, to create good quality wines at low prices. That's great.
Yeah.
So tell us, if you can, before we finish, can you give us some suggestions for wines for the holidays that might go, kind of good with like a special occasion type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously I'm going to recommend some Australian wines, but I can go
Well, yes.
outside of that.
Well, that's fine.
Uh,
That would fit in with the interview today. Yes.
Something that I keep ringing the bell for is Australian Grenache.
Uh-huh.
Um, there's a lot of really amazing old vine material in Australia for Grenache. You have a
Uh-huh.
lot of Grenache vines that date back anywhere from 170 years old to present day, but you
Wow.
have a lot in that kind of 170 to 100-year range.
Wow.
And you can actually get great values for old vine Grenache. And
Uh-huh.
I just think these wines have like incredible depth and complexity, and they go with a lot of different types of things, especially on a holiday table. I mean, talk about like turkey and cranberry sauce and like honey baked ham, like just perfect pairings. And so that's definitely something I always recommend people ask your retailers for Australian Grenache. Um, Tasmanian sparkling wine is another fun thing to have on the holiday table.
Yes.
Tasmania is actually a perfect climate for sparkling wine. It's around the same temperature, if not a little bit colder than Champagne. So you get these really sort of chiseled, delicate, complex, high acid, bright sparkling wines that are really, really lovely. So that's another one that we always recommend and would be kind of perfect for the festive holiday season.
Definitely. I didn't know there was a sparkling wine and that Tasmania made a sparkling wine. That's really interesting because, for the holidays, people usually like to have, sparkling wine at their table. Yeah. So that definitely makes an interesting choice. And it's an interesting way to get to try Australian wines if someone has not done that already. So, but that's great. So, Jane, tell us where we can find the book, where people can find the book. And the title, again, is How to Drink Australian. Is that correct?
Yep. And there's a website for it called howtodrinkaustralian.com. Easy to remember. And we have information there on the book. We have options for how you can purchase it.
Right.
So that's how you can find us. And if people are on Instagram, they can follow us at Oz Wine Legends, AUS Wine Legends.
Okay.
And we're constantly doing events and stuff. So no matter where your listeners are, we're probably doing an event there in the next, 6 to 8 months. We're doing a lot of tastings and dinners and events all over the country. So it's a good time to go out there and try some Australian wine.
Definitely. That's great. Well, thanks so much. And I'll try and make sure we put some of those URLs up on the site for this podcast, the marialiberati.show.com. People will find that. And for those of you out there listening to this in audio, it's going to be up on YouTube in video also soon. So you'll get to see it. Jane, thanks so much for being here and much success with everything. And hopefully we'll have you back in the near future.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Great to meet you.
Thanks. You too. Thanks for listening to the Maria Liberati Show and joining us. And as always, thanks to my producer, Britton Roselle, and this week's special guest, Jane Lopes. And don't forget, join me at my events on, Saturday, November 4th. I'll be at the Doylestown Library in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, doing a book signing. And on Saturday, November 11th and Saturday, December 2nd, I will be at the Upper Southampton Library doing a cooking class for my Gourmand World award-winning book, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, Holidays and Special Occasions. And Saturday, November 11th, that will be at 11 a.m. and Saturday, December 2nd, that will be at 2 p.m. at the Upper Southampton Library. And if you have any questions on those events, as always, you can email us at info@marialiberati.com. And as always, you can find me on Facebook at chefmarialiberati.com, on Instagram at marialiberati.com, on Twitter at marialiberati, on, my Vimeo channel is Maria Liberati. The new channel for this podcast on YouTube, it's the Maria Liberati Show. On Pinterest at Maria Liberati. On, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking by Maria Liberati channel on Roku and marialiberati.com. And you can find my Gourmand World award-winning book series at artoflivingprimamedia.com, on Amazon, and really anywhere books are sold. And until next time, peace, love, and pasta.